Welcome to Hometown Culture, your weekly Orlando Magic podcast, where your host Seth will be unpacking the news every week. Hello, welcome back to Hometown Culture. My name is Seth, and today we're going to be talking about the end of what the NBA draft was, how it relates to free agency happening this upcoming weekend, and what the future looks like for the Orlando Magic. So to start things off, we are going to be talking about the Orlando Magic's 18th overall pick, hailing from Munich, Germany, from the Colorado Buffaloes, I believe. We had Tristan da Silva, 6'8", I believe, and he is a wing/forward. Gotta love the big wing range, lengthy wing forward guys that the Orlando Magic love so much. And to all of those who are kind of disappointed about not having drafted a guard, not having drafted a center, I will say free agency is coming, and I have no doubt in my mind that the Orlando Magic are targeting guards and targeting the big men in free agency for sure. But let's talk about why this Tristan da Silva might just be the perfect off-the-bench pick, role player, future role player, and the stability provider for this Orlando Magic team. So just to get started here, Tristan da Silva is an excellent player. Coming out of college, he is a 23-year-old, so he is older than a lot of our young guys, including Paolo, including Anthony Black, including maybe even Franz Wagner, I believe, too. 23 years old, instantly one of the older guys on this out of the young core that we have, correct? Right. And so we look at that, and some people might be panicking, like, why did we draft someone who was super old coming out of college? And this is the thing. Coming out of college, when you are at such a higher age, your ceiling might not be as high as some. Now, you do have the anomalies, like Shaq went through 4 years of college, and he was absolutely phenomenal. Donovan Mitchell was also an older player coming out of college into the draft, and he turned into a superstar level player. And so it's not impossible for a guy like Tristan da Silva coming out of college with this idea of like a low ceiling type-ish player to blow up into the superstar level player that we've seen in the past. However, it is more unlikely. Those other two guys were definitely lottery picks, so I'm not saying that is something that I'm expecting of Tristan da Silva. However, this draft, for a lot of the talk going into it, was about fits and what teams might need and the roles that these players might be able to fit into, right? And looking at Tristan da Silva, he brings shooting, he brings a level of playmaking, and his defensive potential is there. He is a pretty solid defender, I believe, and to be amplified in that with the Orlando Magic's defensive identity and also with NBA experience, I have no doubt in my mind that with Tristan da Silva's athleticism and what he can bring to the table on offense, he can be the more athletic, better defender version of a Joe Ingles type of player. And this is a comparison I heard the host of Locked On podcasts also use, and I really like the comparison because Tristan da Silva coming out of college is going to be able to contribute at some sort of level. I don't have a doubt in my mind that the Magic are going to try to give him minutes, especially given his age. And I think that the Magic can trust in him to know his role and play his role at a good enough level as a rookie this upcoming season. And there's not a lot of pressure on him. It's not like he is this Anthony Black top 6 pick. I believe Anthony Black was 6 pick last year. But it's not like he's this Anthony Black like type of player where he has a ton of potential and is trying to figure himself out as a player. Tristan da Silva already knows a good deal about who he is as a player and what he has to offer, right? And I think that when he is asked to do things for the Orlando Magic, he is going to step into the roles that he needs to step into, that he knows that he can contribute in, right? And it is something that I think is going to be very vital for this team. I think that having a player that is stable in their role, that you know what is they're going to be providing for you day in and day out, night in, night out, is very, very essential to a young, growing team. You know, sometimes it's the star player where you find your star player and you know that star player is going to be who they are, night in, night out, and you're going to see them continue to rapidly improve in that, right? And sometimes it's not that. You know, I think that Paolo has proven that he is going to be our star player for the future. He's going to be our guy, the guy who if anyone's going to lead us to a chip, it's going to be him, right? And I think Paolo's proven that. But I do not think that we have seen the consistent I'm that guy type of play from Paolo. I think we've seen him as that player for certain stretches of time, but I don't think he has been this consistent superstar. And I think that's reflective in his fringe all-star play last season. And that's not to downplay anything that Paolo's done. Paolo's played phenomenally. But I'm just saying that when you have young talent that isn't as stable in their play, that isn't as locked in and knowing exactly what they're going to get from them, it is important to have players that you know are have that stability in place and that you can rely on when things might not be going your way. Franz Wagner and Anthony Black are two perfect examples, I think, of players that have really great potential, but we don't know if they're for sure going to reach that point. I think all Magic fans, including myself, are very optimistic about those two players. I think that I am bought in on Anthony Black. I'm bought in on Franz Wagner becoming a fringe all-star. I'm bought in on Anthony Black becoming a top 15, top 10 point guard in this league. But there's no way of knowing for sure that those potentials are going to be realized, right? And I think that when you draft someone like Tristan da Silva, you give yourself someone who isn't going to have this pressure of becoming this really, really great player, but someone who you can look to as this reliable guy who is always going to do their part in their role and be a star in their role. And I think that's what Tristan da Silva can bring to the table. And I think that he can bring it even sooner than we may think because of his age, because of how much he already knows about himself as a player. And he is a lot more NBA ready than a lot of the guys who might have more potential. And I think that's what we need at the moment. We have multiple guys that have insane potential. Paolo, Franz, Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, Jet Howard, Caleb Houston. I think that all of these guys are guys we can look at. Maybe not the same level of potential, because I think Paolo and Franz have a different level of potential than a Caleb Houston, obviously. But these are all guys who were banking on their potential and their development. I think Tristan da Silva gives us a guy who we know who he is. We know what he can bring to the table, and we're not banking on him getting to a certain level. We know what level he can be at, and he's going to go through growing pains. Of course, he's going to be a rookie. He's going to have rookie issues and all that stuff. But I think by his sophomore, by his third season in the league, fourth season in the league, you'll see a guy who is secure in his role and has a secure spot, whether it's coming off the bench as a sixth man or seventh or eighth man for that matter, or if it's a starting role for like a minor starting role or whatever the case may be, or a major starting role, right? Only time will tell with this rookie, but I think that it is optimistic to look at him and say, hey, this is a guy who the Magic can look to rely on in the coming seasons, and a guy who can bring to the table a lot of things that the Magic need. He checks off the shooting. He checks off the playmaking. He checks off the defense. I think his athleticism allows him to be able to grow in so many of these areas as well. And I think that when you're pairing him up with a guy like Paulo and Franz, who demand the ball so much, I think that it'll be so great because he knows how to play off the ball. He can move around the ball really well, backdoor cuts, whatever the case may be. And I think that he's going to be a perfect fit coming off the bench for these guys. And judging by this pick, we'll get into the implications of this pick later, but I think that he'll probably be one of our major bench pieces going into this season, especially if he is able to perform at a good, solid level. I'm hoping that he is able to be semi-consistent throughout his rookie season. I'm not expecting him to be the player that I'm hyping him up to be right away. Absolutely not. But like I said, by his second, maybe third season, I think that he can be this player who is going to be a solid role player who can contribute on many different sides of the ball. And I think that you see how much that matters in these championship teams so much. You've seen it with the Boston Celtics with Drew Holiday and Derek White. You saw it in the 2023 Denver Nuggets with Bruce Brown. You saw it in the 2022 Golden State Warriors with a guy like Jordan Poole coming off and giving you a bench presence there. Or even you could also say Klay Thompson might have been a star role player in that season. Not quite prime Klay Thompson, not quite the all-star level Klay Thompson, but a guy who could do many different things. Andrew Wiggins, what am I doing? Andrew Wiggins, perfect example of the guy who was a star in his role in that 2022 Warriors team. Andrew Wiggins, perfect example. 2021 Bucks, you had a Drew Holiday once again, who is a star in their role, contributing on multiple different levels of the game. And this is what it takes to win. And so I think Tristan da Silva has the potential to be this player who is going to be a star in their role, who's going to be adding and contributing to the Orlando Magic in the areas that don't necessarily get shed light upon unless you're like a Drew Holiday or Derek White of the world. And I think that Tristan da Silva can be like the glue that brings this team together. One of the pieces of glue, because it's not just going to be him that propels us suddenly, obviously. But I think that Tristan da Silva is going to be a key piece to what brings this team together to really succeed in the next few seasons, and especially going into next season, and especially down the line 3, 4, 5 years from now. And so I'm very happy with this pick, given where we were landed in the draft, and I'm very intrigued to see where the Magic go with the rest of the offseason, whether it be free agency or trades. And we'll get right into that and the impact that this pick has on the Magic's free agency decisions next. So the Orlando Magic have drafted Tristan da Silva, and now it is time to talk about what the rest of the offseason holds and what free agency specifically holds. And I'm very excited about free agency. I'm very optimistic about free agency. And mainly it's because I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, the Magic are going to get some sort of guard play from this free agency class. And I do not think it has to be a home run, but I do believe that the Magic need to spend money. We have $50 million of cap space this offseason. And if we let that go to waste, then I think it would have been a failure on the Magic's part, because not utilizing that $50 million of cap space, right? It not only prevents you from getting valuable role players, valuable veterans, whatever the case may be, but it also prevents you from being active in the trade market, because as of right now, our biggest contract is Jonathan Isaac at $17 million, which is not a big enough contract to move around for some serious, real contributing players when we get to the trade market. And so for the Magic to want to be active in the trade market when they need to be, and for the Magic to be also able to continue to grow and develop in the ways that they want to, they need to be able to sign some free agents this offseason. Now, with the Tristan da Silva pick, we have to talk about the future of Joe Ingles. I think that Tristan da Silva might have just replaced Joe Ingles on this roster in his roster spot. I think that although Tristan da Silva is a rookie, I think that the Magic will probably prioritize playing Tristan da Silva and also developing him as a player throughout this rookie season. I know that the development of players, like the Magic have said this last season, that rookies are going to need to earn their minutes. But I think that Tristan da Silva and Joe Ingles' abilities can kind of overlap with each other to the point where Joe Ingles might not be on this roster next season, at least not at the contract that he is now. Whether or not he signs like a minimum or whatever later on is another story. But I think that trying to utilize Tristan da Silva and using your cap space towards a different veteran that might be bringing more experience, maybe championship experience to the table, would be a better fit, especially if that is a guard, because we desperately need guard play. I think that if we keep Tristan da Silva, keep Joe Ingles, we have 5 guards or 5 wings in that like spot, and whether Tristan da Silva's in or out of the G League, I think that Tristan da Silva's too old not to get playing time on this team. And so I would not expect the Magic to be putting him in and out of the G League like they did Jet Howard last season. And I think that in order to maximize the development of some of these guys that we have, like a Anthony Black, like a Tristan da Silva, I think that it would probably require making some room for those guys. And so I'm not sure about Joe Ingles' future with the Magic. This pick might be the thing that does it in for Joe Ingles here going into the offseason. Now, looking into the offseason, what are our needs now? We have Tristan da Silva looking like the wing guy who can fill in for the Joe Ingles minutes that we will lose from Joe Ingles leaving, and also fill in for Jonathan Isaac in case of any injuries and whatnot as well. And looking at that, I think that the main 2 needs of this team are obviously guard play, 3-point shooting, and a big man. A backup big man that can step in, especially when Wendell Carter gets injured. Because at this point, Wendell Carter has proven that he is not set for 60 games in a season. And hopefully that can change. I mean, I don't want to be like this negative guy who's like, oh, Wendell Carter's never going to play more than 60 games in a season. But based on what we have seen from Wendell Carter in his injury history, it just seems that he is not able to play out full seasons. And so we need an extra center to fill out those minutes. And Goga did a phenomenal job last season. Goga and Mo together did a phenomenal job. But I think that a lot of Magic fans and a lot of people, including the front office, probably is looking at the centers available in free agency and thinking that we can probably get an upgrade there, whether it's an Isaiah Hartenstein or a Nicholas Claxton. Now, Nicholas Claxton might not be the option because he has shown his interest in re-signing with the Brooklyn Nets for, I believe, $20 million a year at 4 years, $100 million. And so I don't think that Nicholas Claxton is necessarily the option that we will be able to go with. And we could re-sign Goga Bitadze once again and just run it back with the same big men. And I will not be upset with that decision. If we cannot get an Isaiah Hartenstein or other big men that might be on the market, I don't remember if Jonas Valanciunas is a free agent this season, but whatever the case may be, whoever might be out there for the potential for the Magic to get, I haven't necessarily looked at the centers as much. If we end up just re-signing Mo and Goga, and we're just running it back with those 3 centers as our guys, I'm not going to be upset with that, especially since we had experimented with Jay at the 5 as well, and he did pretty well there in some of those moments where he was playing. And so I think that it will be I will definitely be okay with it, but only if the Magic get their guard. And right now, the guards such as Paul George, who's a wing/guard, the Klay Thompsons of the world, they want long-term deals. They want to be secure. They want to have big contracts that are securing them through 3-4 seasons in going down the line as they exit their careers. And that is something that the Magic were unwilling to give. Now, whether the Magic end up bending to maybe a 3 or 4 year deal with one of those guys in order to secure them is up to debate. And personally, seeing how the Magic have been so meticulous and so set in their way of how they want to do things and how they want to run their team, I would not expect the front office to bend on this desire for a 2-year deal. However, it has come out that league sources have said that it will probably be likely that the Magic will be offering players like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Klay Thompson 2 years, starting at 2 years, $50 million with the available cap space that they have. Now, with this knowledge, I believe it is completely in the realm of possibility that we can steal a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope away from everyone else in the market. Kind of like a Bruce Brown move last season where Bruce Brown got $20 million. This would be a signing of getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for $25 million a year. And you might think it's an overpay, but the free agency market is not very bright right now. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, say what you want about him, at the end of the day, I believe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is the better, more realized, more respected version of Gary Harris. Gary Harris was an excellent defender. He was supposed to be this guy who was making shooting and making threes and spacing the floor for the Magic and allowing for attention to be brought to him to not allow teams to pack the paint as much as they were against the Magic this season. And throughout all of Gary Harris's minutes, and I've watched Gary Harris, I've been a supporter of Gary Harris. I've wanted this guy to succeed throughout his entire career, and I've looked at what he's done for the Magic in these last few seasons, and it's not bad. He shot 43% from three last season, and he shot 37% from three this season, and it was on 4 attempts, basically 4 attempts for both years, and that is not a bad percentage, especially for Magic terms. And some people may argue that he would be doing immensely better if he got more touches, if he was able to shoot the ball more, get more opportunities to pull up and shoot. And that is arguable, for sure. But at the end of the day, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has been a consistent near 40% three-point shooter for the last 5 seasons. And he's done it on a similar volume to what Gary Harris was doing at the last 2 seasons. However, he has the history of being a great three-point shooter, and he has a gravity to him that will cause him to be guarded with attention. And I have not seen that necessarily from Gary Harris. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the same type of gravity that Paul George or Klay Thompson would have, because it's not. That is a different type of gravity that those players have. But I'm saying that because of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's history of shooting and great shooting, and his history of being a great defender, and him actively still being a great defender on guards and whatnot, I think that he is one of these guys who we can look at and say, hey, we're going to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, upgrade from Gary Harris, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will be able to space the floor a little bit better than Gary Harris will, and I believe we'll be able to capitalize a lot more on those open shots that he may get from teams trying to pack the paint on Paolo and Franz. And I think that having Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, especially on such a much bigger contract, allows for the team to also have flexibility in the trade market. Because once again, if you want to be active in the trade market, you got to have contracts that you can trade away. It's not always just the players, the picks, whatever. Contracts need to line up, and if the money doesn't match, you're not going anywhere. And the simple matter of fact for the Magic is, because all of our guys are super young and are on rookie contracts and all this stuff, we don't have the luxury of throwing one guy in a trade and making the money match like that. We don't have the luxury of throwing a Bruce Brown in a trade and making money match so we can get a Pascal Siakam, right? And so if the trade market opens up to a point where the Magic can start hunting to improve drastically, if that is what the Magic need in that moment throughout either this season or next season, or whatever the case may be, right? This upcoming season or the season after is what I mean, right? I think that getting a guy like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on such a big contract, but who is valuable still, even at that money, I think would be huge, especially since it's a 2-year contract. If you're trading him away this season, the team that's accepting him is getting him for another year. And if you're trading him away in 2 seasons, then they're trading for an expiring contract, which is still huge, especially if at that moment of time it becomes an overpay for that player. So I personally would love Kentavious Caldwell-Pope coming to this team. I think $25 million a year for these next 2 seasons would be huge for him, and I think that it might just be exactly what the Magic need to offer in order to rise above the rest of the market and the rest of the offers that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was getting. It also allows us to hunt for a big man. With the $15 million that we have to spend, that's half of the money right there. I think that we can utilize the rest for a big man potentially. And if we can't figure that out, then maybe getting some other veteran type of player that can come in and help us. I think there's also the idea of like people throwing out just random like Dwight Howards. I don't know if a Dwight Howard homecoming is necessarily the thing that this Magic team needs, but at the same time, Dwight Howard is a veteran. Has championship experience. Same thing with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They have championship experience, and I think that is huge to a young team that is hungry but needs to learn how to win. And so I think the free agency market can be huge. I think that it can be a massive shift in how we see this team next season and the success of this team next season, and ultimately can lead to very big differences happening coming into next season with how this team looks, how this team plays, and how the offense is run, how well defensively they are, whether or not they continue their great defense. But I think regardless of what happens, they will be a top defensive team because this team will not sacrifice their defense for the better offense, right? And so it'll be very interesting. It'll also be very interesting to see if the Magic are active in the trade market. I don't believe like an Anthony Simons type of player will be available, especially with the Blazers trading away Malcolm Brogdon recently. And I think that once again with like the Nicholas Claxton situation, I don't know if Nicholas Claxton will be available. Isaiah Hartenstein though is a very interesting free agent prospect. The Knicks just got Mikal Bridges for a slew of first round picks, and Mikal Bridges, as well as OG Anunoby's new contract, is eating up a lot of the Knicks cap space. So Isaiah Hartenstein or Mitchell Robinson might not be safe. Hopefully, if we're the Magic, we want to see the Knicks let Isaiah Hartenstein walk in free agency, explore free agency as an unrestricted free agent, and potentially come to Orlando, which I think would be huge for the Orlando Magic. But ultimately, we are not sure what will end up happening until it happens. So all that's left to do is wait and be very excited and wait with anticipation for what the free agency market has, and hope that the Magic are able to strike big and improving this roster. All right, and that about wraps up this episode of Hometown Culture. I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, this is all super, super exciting for the Orlando Magic's future. However, none of it ultimately matters if Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner do not continue to progress in the ways that we need them to progress, and if Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, all the progression of these young guys matters. And so hopefully we will continue to see great progression from some of these guys, some whose progression has accelerated and some who have not progressed as much as we've wanted them to. I'm hoping that the fire lit inside of each one of these players from losing in Game 7 last year against the Cavs propels them to improve drastically this next season, and we will see. I definitely can see this team going and becoming a top 4 seed in the East this next season, and I can definitely see this team becoming a top 3 seed in 2-3 seasons at least. So very exciting time for the Orlando Magic. Very exciting time to see what the future holds. And it's exciting because the Orlando Magic front office might actually start making moves that we've been wanting to start making since last season. And hopefully the moves of the front office will propel us into the direction that us Magic fans and the city wants to see. The direction of contention. True playoff contention, true finals contention, and eventually true championship contention. And with that, I'll see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a blessed day. God loves you. And next week, I'll be talking all things free agency across the entire league. Peace.